Clinical Oncology Series Part 2 by Clinical SWOT. Today's contents are cancer biology and cancer etiology, cell proliferation and transformation. In normal cells, growth and proliferation are under strict control. But in cancerous cells become unresponsive to normal growth controls, which leads to uncontrolled cell division. Abnormally proliferating or transformed cells display several abnormal characteristics. These include loss of contact inhibition, an altered appearance or poor adherence to other cells, loss of anchorage dependence for growth, and gain of tumorigenicity. Cancer initiation. Tumorigenesis is proposed to have three steps, that is cancer initiation, promotion, and progression. Initiating events such as gain of function of genes known as oncogenes or loss of function of genes known as tumor suppressor genes. So cancer is a disease of clonal progression, as tumor arises from a single cell and accumulate mutations and then lead to tumor in an increasingly aggressive behavior. Most tumors go through a progression from benign lesions to in situ tumors and then to invasive cancers. Mutations in at least 4 or 5 genes are required for formation of a malignant tumor, while fewer changes suffice to a benign tumor. Cell cycle dysregulation and cancer. Mutation or alteration in expression of cell cycle proteins, growth factors, growth factor receptors, intracellular signal transduction proteins, or nuclear transcription factors all can lead to disturbance of basic regulatory mechanisms that control the cell cycle, allow the unregulated cell growth and proliferation. There are two key classes of regulatory molecules, that are cyclins and cyclin dependent kinases. And there is also two families of genes, that are CYP-KIP family and INK4A or ARF family. Mutation in any of these family or altered expression of these genes can lead to tumor formation. Then there is oncogenes. Normal cellular genes that contribute to cancer when they are abnormal are called oncogenes, and their normal counterpart is known as proto-oncogenes. Oncogenes can be growth factor like platelet-derived growth factor or PDGF. They can be growth factor receptors, that is HER2, or intracellular signal transduction molecules like RAS, or transcription factors like c-Myc. Further, persistent overexpression of growth factors or abnormal activation or expression of these cell signaling molecules, the cell cycle molecules or transcription factors, can lead to neoplastic transformation. The first is HER2. HER2 is a member of epidermal growth factor receptor family. HER2 can interact with different members of her family and activate mitogenic and anti-apoptotic pathways. Heterodimerization of HER2 potentiates the cell cycle receptor rather than degrading it. It potentiates the receptors rather than degrading it, which enhances the signal potency and duration and also increases the affinity for the ligands of MAPK and PI3K pathway, which then through MAPK pathway it continues mitogenic process, which leads to increase in tumor formation and increase in tumor mitogenesis, whereas through PI3K pathway, that is anti-apoptotic pathway, it impairs the apoptosis of the tumor cells, which further leads to tumor progression. HER2 gene is frequently overexpressed in many cancers like breast cancer, ovarian cancer, lung cancer, gastric cancer, and oral cancers. And specific treatment for these HER2 related cancers are monoclonal antibodies like trastuzumab, pertuzumab, and lapatinib, also trastuzumab and imatinib. Cancer invasion. Cancer invasion is a feature of malignant cells to invade the surrounding normal tissue. Tumors in which malignant cells appear to lie above the basement membrane are called in situ cancers, whereas tumors in which the malignant cells breach the basement membrane are termed as invasive cancers. This migration or invasion of cancer occurs when tumor cell integrin receptors attach to the glycoproteins of ECM such as fibronectin, laminin, and collagen, and they breach with the help of MMPs, urokinase, tissue plasminogen activators or TPA, or serine proteases. These all mainly degrade a variety of ECM components that helps the tumor cells or cancerous cells to breach the basement membrane and invade the surrounding tissue or normal tissue. Then comes angiogenesis. Angiogenesis is establishment of new blood vessels from the pre-existing vascular bed. This neovascularization is essential for tumor growth and metastasis. In response to angiogenic switch, Endothelium secretes several growth factors such as VEGF, PDGF, fibroblast growth factor, insulin-like growth factor. The basement membrane and the stroma around the capillary are proteolytically degraded by UPA. The endothelium then migrates through the degraded matrix, initially as a solid cord and later forming lumen, finally sprouting anastomosis to form a vascular network surrounded by basement membrane. Inhibitors of angiogenesis include thrombospondin 1 and angiostatin. Then comes metastasis. Metastasis arises from a spread of cancer cell from primary site and then formation of tumors in distant site. Firstly, the primary cancer must develop the access to the circulation through either the blood circulatory system or lymphatic system. Nextly, the circulating cells lodge in the new organ. Then the cells need to initiate growth in the new tissue and eventually establish vascularization to sustain the new tumor. There is a term known as dormancy, in which metastasis can sometimes arise several years after the treatment of the primary tumor, which is called dormancy. Several contributing factors for the dormancy are persistence of solitary cancer cells in the secondary sites such as liver or bone marrow. The second is cells establish pre-angiogenic metastasis in which they continue to proliferate, but the proliferative rate is balanced by the apoptotic rate. And the third is losing total immunologic control. The other explanation of the metastasis is seed and soil theory, in which seed is a cancer cell and the soil is the secondary organ in which cancer tries to metastasize. So, if the secondary organ is favorable for the seed, so called the cancer cell, then and then only the cancer will metastasize or proliferate in the secondary organ. Then there is epithelial mesenchymal transition. During epithelial mesenchymal transition, the epithelial cells are converted to migratory and invasive mesenchymal cells, which then acquire the ability to migrate, invade, resist apoptosis, and metastasize in the setting of cancer. Then our lecture's second topic is cancer etiology, which will start from cancer genomics. Mainly, cancer is a genetic disease that arises from the accumulation of genomic alterations. And the genomic alterations are classified in two main types, that is somatic mutation and germline mutation. Somatic mutation are those that are acquired genetic alteration, whereas germline mutations are those that are inherited from the parents or transmitted to the offsprings. There are several factors that lead to hereditary cancer risk, that is tumor development at a younger age than usual, or any presence of bilateral disease, or any presence of multiple primary malignancies, or presentation of cancer in the less affected sex, for example male breast cancer, or clustering of same type of cancer in the relatives, or occurrence of cancer in association with the other conditions such as mental retardation or pathognomic skin lesions. The first gene involved in hereditary cancer risk is retinoblastoma gene, which is a product known as retinoblastoma protein. It is a regulator of transcription that controls the cell cycle differentiation, apoptosis, and normal cell development. Majorly, some children who have affected parent with retinoblastoma, they develop either bilateral retinoblastoma or unilateral retinoblastoma. But in some cases, children with affected parent do not develop retinoblastoma, but their children can develop retinoblastoma, which indicates the hereditary form of this disease. Retinoblastoma involves two mutations in which one is germline and one is somatic, whereas in non-hereditary retinoblastoma, it involves two somatic mutations. Children with hereditary retinoblastoma are also at risk of developing intracranial tumor, or most commonly pineoblastoma. Then there is P53 or Li-Fraumeni syndrome. This Li-Fraumeni syndrome, also called LFS, has several criteria. For example, a bone or soft tissue sarcoma develops when younger than 45 years of age. A first degree relative with cancer is diagnosed before the age of 45, and another first or second degree relative with either sarcoma diagnosed at any age or cancer diagnosed before age 45, or any cancer diagnosed before age 45. The P53 mainly regulates the cell cycle progression as well as the apoptotic cell death as a part of stress response pathway after the exposure to to ionizing UV radiations, chemotherapy, or acidosis, or also hypoxia. Then there is BRCA1 and BRCA2 of women with early onset of breast cancer, that is age 40 years or younger. Nearly 10% of germline mutation in one of the breast cancer genes, BRCA1 or BRCA2. So the women who are younger than 40 years of age can have breast cancer due to BRCA1 or BRCA2 mutation in only 10% of the population. Whereas mutation carriers are more prevalent among women who have first or second degree relative with premenopausal breast cancer or ovarian cancer at any age. BRCA1 mutation are also increased risk for colon cancer and prostate cancer also. BRCA2 mutation increase the risk of prostate cancer in men younger than 65, also increase the risk of gallbladder cancer and bile duct cancer and pancreatic cancer, gastric cancer, and malignant melanoma. BRCA1 associated tumors are more likely to be estrogen receptor negative, whereas BRCA2 associated tumors are more likely to be estrogen receptor positive. BRCA1 estrogen receptor negative, BRCA2 estrogen receptor positive. Then there is APC gene or familial adenomatous polyposis. This FAP develops hundreds, thousands of polyps in the colon and rectum, and if left untreated, it may progress to colorectal cancer. Alteration in APC gene leads to dysregulation of several physiological processes that govern the colonic epithelial cell homeostasis, including the cell cycle progression, migration, differentiation, and apoptosis. So APC gene mainly dysregulates everything in the colonic epithelium. Mutation in this APC have been identified in FAP in approx 80% are those with sporadic colorectal cancer. Then there is hereditary non-polyposis colorectal cancer, that is HNCC, also called Lynch syndrome. This is a mismatch repair genes. This is caused by mismatch repair genes which predisposes to colorectal cancer. There are mainly two types of Lynch syndrome, that is Lynch 1 and Lynch 2. Lynch 1, we can see hereditary predisposition of colorectal cancer. And in Lynch 2, we have similar colonic phenotype accompanied by high risk for carcinoma of endometrium, transitional cells, carcinoma of ureter, renal pelvis, carcinoma of stomach, small bowel, ovarian, pancreas. How to diagnose this Lynch syndrome is through a special criteria known as Amsterdam criteria, also called 3210 rule, in which 3 or more family members have Lynch syndrome or Lynch syndrome associated cancer. Of them, 2 or more generations are involved, and at least one individual was diagnosed before the age of 50. Then there is PTEN or Cowden mutation. It is a somatic deletion or mutation in tumor suppressor gene known as PTEN, which leads to glioma, breast, prostate, renal cell carcinoma in the renal cell lines. Mainly PTEN, what it does is it negatively controls the PI3K signaling pathway, which is the anti-apoptotic pathway. And its main site is axon 5, and approximately Cowden disease, in the Cowden disease 43% of these CD mutation are in these axons. Presentation is trichomonas, benign tumors of hair follicle infundibulum or mucocutaneous papillomatosis. These are pathognomic for CD, that is Cowden disease. It can also include thyroid adenoma, multinodular goiters, breast fibroadenomas, hematomatous GI polyps. CD is associated with increased risk of breast and thyroid cancer. We can see Cowden disease is predisposed in breast or thyroid cancers. Then there is P16 and hereditary malignant melanoma. P16 is an inactivated through point mutation, leads to cancer of pancreas, esophagus, head and neck, stomach, breast, and colon. It also causes melanomas. Then there is E-cadherin and hereditary diffuse gastric cancer, which is due to CDH1 mutations in approximately 70 to 80% of patients. Furthermore, mutations of CDH1 are also seen in the cancers of ovary, endometrium, breast, and thyroid. Then there is RET, proto-oncogene and multiple endocrine neoplasias type 2, commonly known as MEN type 2 or MEN2. Mainly gain of function mutation in RET gene is associated with medullary thyroid carcinoma, and RET mutation leads to uncontrolled growth of thyroid C cells in familial medullary cancer. So we can see C cell hyperplasia, which progresses to bilateral multicentric medullary thyroid cancer. MEN2A, which is multiple endocrine neoplasia type 2A, consists of parathyroid hyperplasia, medullary thyroid carcinoma, pheochromocytoma, and MEN2B consists of medullary thyroid, pheochromocytoma, mucosal neuromas that are oral or intestinal. Marfanoid habitus can also be seen. Then we have chemical carcinogens which predisposes to cancer. Any agent. First of all, what is carcinogen? That is any agent that contributes to the tumor formation. It can be chemical, physical, or viral. The first of all is chemical. It is divided into three groups. That is, first group, there are genotoxins that initiate carcinogenesis. The second group is co-carcinogens. They do not cause cancer but potentiate carcinogenesis of the genotoxins. Means they help genotoxins or the first group. The third group is tumor promoters, which enhances tumor formation when given after the exposure to genotoxins. Now, the examples of chemical carcinogens are gold gasification affecting the lung, aflatoxins causing hepatocellular carcinoma, vinyl chloride causing hepatic angiosarcoma or hepatocellular carcinoma, formaldehyde causing nasopharynx cancer or leukemia. Then there are physical carcinogens. Physical carcinogens can be foreign bodies, inflammatory, this chronic wound, non-healing wounds, burns, or inflammatory bowel syndrome, and also Helicobacter pylori leading to gastritis or gastric cancer. That is, there is also Opisthochus wawrinii, which is a parasite leading to local inflammation, cholangiocarcinoma. It is also considered in physical carcinogens. Then we have asbestos fibers, silica, radiation, and non-ionizing UV radiation. In the case of radiation, there is a special condition known as bystander effect, which is indirect effect of radiation. What is this bystander effect? It is if the cells do not acquire mutations at the initial irradiation, they remain at risk for developing new mutation for several generations. Moreover, even cells that have not been directly irradiated appear to be at risk. This is called bystander effect. Means the cell who did not acquire mutation at the initial irradiation or initial radiation, they remain viable for irradiation or mutation. These cells are called these cells or this phenomenon of cells is called bystander effect. Then there is viral carcinogens. As we know, there are mainly two types of virus, that is RNA virus or DNA virus. In the case of oncogenic RNA virus are retroviruses and they contain reverse transcriptase. After a viral infection, the single-stranded RNA viral genome is transcribed into double-stranded DNA copy, which is integrated into chromosomal DNA of the cell. This is classic for HIV. We can also see this type of mechanism in HIV when HIV virus infects the human host. This retroviral infection in the cell is permanent and integrated DNA sequences remain in host chromosome. These cellular genes are referred to as proto-oncogenes. Then there is DNA tumor virus. In the case of DNA tumor virus, there are mainly two ways through which virus affects the host. That is in permissive host or in non-permissive host. In permissive host, infection with oncogenic DNA virus may result in productive lytic infection, which leads to cell death and release of new formed virus. In the case of non-permissive cells, the viral DNA can be integrated into cellular chromosomal DNA, and some of the early viral genes can be synthesized persistently, which leads to transformation of the cell to a neoplastic state. When cancer develops, it usually occurs several years after the viral infection. For example, the risk of hepatocellular carcinoma among the individual infected with hepatitis C is 1 to 3% after 3 years. So these two cases is illustrated in the next slide. In the PIC form, we can see here a red virus mainly comes and infects the host. The first is left side, first is permissive cells. The virus comes and infects the host. It in the case of late infection, it replicates and assembles the particles, and in this is now infected cell, and then it does the lysis of the cell, so the cell is dead. And the second case is non-permissive host. It mainly enters the cell or infects the cell. Then it integrates in the viral DNA. We can see it in the nucleus, red point in the nucleus. It then integrates this viral DNA, becomes the past part of this host genome, and then it transforms, or it proliferates in the transformation phase. That is, cells change the shape and grow. The cell or viral infection grows and leads to tumor formation. So this is how the two types of DNA viruses infect the host and leads to tumor formation. Then these are several examples of viral carcinogens that you can pause and further read. Thank you. By Clinical SWOT, signing off. Stay safe, study hard.